You know, this season really feels like a mystery novel. Every episode is a new chapter that slowly but surely clues you into the story, and this time around it has been so tricky trying to figure out who the winner is, but I think I'm almost there. There is going to be a lot to break down in this episode, but before we get started, make sure you're subscribed below just so you can stay tuned as we continue to wrap up this wild ass season. Seriously though, so many of y'all watch my videos every single week, yet you're still not subscribed yet. What is up with that? Now that housekeeping's out of the way, let's get started. So, the last episode showed Moriah to be a bit of a puppet master, with her leading the charge against Tiffany. This was cute for her, but it also put a huge target on her back going forward. Moriah is just taking shots from all angles in this episode, but the most importantly is that she's finally starting to take a little bit of heat from her #1 ally, Charlie, but that we'll get to later. As the day passes, people go out and start to hunt for Idolicia, the idol that Tiffany left behind. The hunt is on, and it's taking a little bit of time until out of nowhere, the idol was found by the person that I would least expect.
And I take my little stick and I'm pushing leaves and I'm pushing leaves. And I found it. I found it first, and I was so ecstatic. I'm tripping.
I just know that the Venus stands were up during this moment. I mean, I could hear y'all celebrating, trust me. Even though this was her first, real big moment this season, I don't think Venus sees it that way. Her confessionals still have her coming off as kind of clueless, like she thinks she's running the game way more than she actually is. And it's edits like that that made it impossible for me to ever picture Venus as the winner. We also get that really funny scene of Kenzie and Venus out idol hunting together, where Kenzie is kind of making fun of Venus's lack of effort here. Meanwhile, Venus has had the idol in her pocket the whole time. Now, at first glance, this scene kind of gives you the impression that Kenzie is the one that's a little bit foolish and out of the loop here. But on my second watch, I noticed that Venus is actually the one that comes across foolish here, because they're actually giving her that dopey kind of music as she talks about wanting to keep her idol a secret.
But no one will ever catch a whiff of me having this, because I don't see any benefit in someone knowing that I have this power. I feel bad for Tip. I think the worst thing would be if I went home with an idol in my pocket.
Meanwhile, it looks like it's trouble in paradise for Charlie and Moriah, because for the first time in the game, they're on different pages about what to do next. Moriah wants to keep Q in the game as a loyal number, whereas Charlie wants to get rid of him now. He knows that Q has the potential to keep squeezing his way through the game, and he wants to put an end to that. Charlie really does impress me, I'm not gonna lie. He seems to be really aware of the game structure and his place in it, unlike Venus. And yeah, he knows that Moriah got all the credit for the last blindside, but he also doesn't care because he knows that Moriah is now a huge target because of it. You see, Charlie knows that his bestie's game is slowly sinking, but he's also smart enough to not do anything about it. Because even though he's in good social standing with plenty of immunity wins, for whatever reason, Charlie is still not being targeted, which is insane. But I also really think that that speaks to Charlie's adaptability and fantastic social game. So overall, it is looking like the majority is actually wanting to vote out Moriah here, which is going to make things super awkward when Moriah goes on to win this next immunity. Now, this is obviously going to cause a lot of scrambling later on, but for now, there is a reward to sort out, which, just like last week, turns into an absolute shit show. Moriah now gets to choose 2 people to take to the pizza party with her for reward, but she actually ends up doing the absolute most here, and I gotta say, I'm loving every second of it. First, she makes these people plead their case, which was just awkward, but that still wasn't enough, so then on top of that, she decides to make people play a game of rock, paper, scissors to decide who gets pizza, which was probably the worst way to go about the whole thing.
Liz and Q, rock, paper, scissors.
Paper covers rock, is that it?
Yep.
Q, come on over.
From Big Brother to Squid Games, y'all, this was the third time this year that I've seen somebody's competition reality fate get decided by a game of rock, paper, freaking scissors. Please, can we choose a different game for this next year? That's all I'm asking. I definitely think the worst part about this whole thing was how Moriah made such a big deal about wanting to pick the neediest and hungriest person out there in order to give them food, only to turn around and choose Q of all people, who just ate.
I see you eat every day.
Like, if she wanted to take Q on the reward just because she likes him and wants to work with him, that's fine. Just say that. Or if she wants to take Q on the reward because he picked her to go to Applebee's, that's fine. Just say that. But Moriah was doing the absolute most here, and even Q's ass agreed.
I shouldn't have went on that reward. I just ate a couple days ago, a big meal. And now I just ate about 23 slices of pizza.
So now more than ever, Moriah is the prime target out there. And in my opinion, this whole scene just killed any chances she had of winning the game. Everyone is just bitching about Moriah now, including Charlie, who's just kind of feeding the flames in order to continue to paint this target on Maria's back and make her look like a villain, which I thought was great gameplay from Charlie. I don't blame him at all for wanting to separate from Moriah. I mean, after all, she's making Liz's allergies flare up.
And I think, honestly, this sounds crazy, I think that's why I have so many allergies. Because I've suppressed my own self for so long.
Meanwhile, at the pizza party, the consensus seems to be to make Venus the target this time. She's just a messy player and a wild card in the game, and honestly, it feels like Venus's time has been coming up for a while now. But the other half of the tribe would rather target Q here. They seem to think he's a really big threat, even though he hasn't even come close to winning immunity and his social game is ass right now. If I were in the game, I don't think I would see Q as a threat per se, but more like somebody who's just gonna take up a spot in Final Tribal. I know some of y'all think Q is winning just because of his overexposure in the edit, but I just don't see it happening just because it doesn't seem like any of those other players give him any sort of respect at all. And you need to have respect from your jury in order to be able to win this game at the end. Charlie seems to be in the middle of this vote, and he has a really tough choice to make. Like I said before, he has been thinking about separating from Moriah for a little bit now, but it's just too risky because if he loses Moriah and Ben as a number, then who does Charlie really have? Charlie goes to have a game talk with Venus, and things get really, really weird because Venus starts to heavily imply that she has an idol, even though the girl swore up and down that she wasn't gonna tell nobody. She tries to be kind of sly with it too, but it just ends up making her look cagey. And at this moment, I could kind of see what everybody else on the island was talking about with Venus. Like, I could totally see why nobody really wanted to work with her because, girl, what the hell? Venus does seem to have a decent strategic sense of where everything is in the game. It's just that her social ability sucks. Like, at this point, Ben has called her a poser. Hunter straight up called the girl unlikable to her face. I mean, I love the drama she brings, don't get me wrong. I love when players like Venus are cast, but I've just never been able to see her win the game just based on how everybody else on the island talks about her. After a while, the group eventually goes off to Tribal, where the food drama continues to spill out in front of everybody. We have Moriah and Venus still out there arguing. We have Venus and Q still beefing. It's pretty fun to watch, I'm not gonna lie.
I would never, in a million years, try and talk strategy with this man voluntarily. And that's a fact.
That's why you didn't know about the last vote, because they didn't trust you.
Mm-hmm, but I knew about the previous 3 and you didn't, so.
Ooh, hold it.
The votes are eventually read, and to my surprise, with 4 votes, Venus is ultimately the one who is voted out. And with that damn idol in her pocket, just like everybody else. This vote probably shocked me the most out of all the other ones so far because I could have and would have sworn up and down that Venus was making it to the final tribal. I mean, this whole season, I thought the edit had set her up perfectly to be the GOAT that people take to the end because they knew they could beat against her. Like, I would have put my money on that. But no, instead, she becomes the 4th freaking person this season to leave with an idol in their pocket. That is crazy. So, with only 6 players remaining, Kenzie and Charlie are still at the top of my winners list, but it is still pretty tough to decide between the two. Kenzie is a well-rounded player with a well-rounded edit. Even when she's on the bottom of the game, she is still getting a positive and hopeful edit, especially in this episode. Now, she did get a backup vote in this episode though, which isn't a good look because that just means that she's expendable to somebody out there. And on the other hand, we have Charlie, whose point of view has also been shown to us throughout the season, even when his own game has been stagnant. However, I don't think this episode gave him the best look. I mean, he talked all episode about turning against Moriah, only to make the safer choice in the end and stick by her side. But at the same time, I mean, he's not being targeted right now, even though he definitely should be. So hey, maybe keeping Moriah and Q in the game as shields for him is the better move. I don't know. I think right now I'm gonna put Kenzie back on the top of my list as the front runner. Charlie is trailing right behind her though, and I guess if I had to choose a third person, just a complete wild card to win this season, it would have to be Ben. I know Ben's strategic game is pretty much non-existent, but his social game has been solid in the edit every single episode so far, and I can't ignore that. Of course, I want to know, what did you all think of this episode, and who do you think is going to win this whole thing? Let me know in the comments below. This season has been an absolute blast to watch so far, especially the second half. So I'm really excited to see what else unfolds as we head toward the finale. Of course, I'll be back to update y'all after the next episode, but until then, bye.